Hello and welcome to this very first edition of Unleash Your Inner Athlete with me, Julia Pizzi-Kamey. And it's going to be a monthly podcast, and I'm going to be bringing to you experts from sport, health and fitness who will be shedding light on the very best ways to stay fit, healthy and have a long, happy, active life after 40 and beyond. And today we have got a very special guest, Helen Money, who is here with me. And we are going to be discussing the importance of nutrition for a long active life and why eating right is important at this time of life. Now, Helen has had a vast experience in this particular subject, but funnily enough, started out life as a fund manager in the city, so well understands the importance that nutrition plays, not in a high-pressure environment, but also being able to perform at your very peak. On top of that, she also has vast experience in sports nutrition in particular. And as you know, I like to bring in elements of sporting principles into what I do in coaching people. Now, Helen has been contracted with Oxford University, working with their elite level student athletes. She's been a consultant at Cambridge University, working on their world-renowned Nutrition Society's research journals. She's lectured at Westminster University. And on top of that, she has worked with some of the top athletes, from Olympic level athletes, marathon runners, swimming, cricket, you name it. You have worked in that. So you are very well versed in understanding how to plan for not just training and performance, but also for things like injury risk, injury prevention and recovery as well. So over to you, Helen Money. Welcome and thank you for joining me today.
Hello, Julia, and thank you for inviting me to join you.
It's my pleasure. So what was it about nutrition in particular that attracted you, in particular sports nutrition?
I love nutrition. I'm in awe and completely fascinated by how what we eat impacts both our well-being and our performance. That's that we know that what we eat can impact the risk of us developing chronic diseases such as heart disease and diabetes. But also within sports nutrition, we know that an athlete eating the right diet for them can make them run for longer, run faster, jump higher. What I also love about sports nutrition is we see nutrition in its extreme, because within sport, athletes tend to be asking their bodies to do some quite amazing things at the extreme extent of what the body can do. And the body is capable of doing these things if it's fueled properly. Another reason, oh, sorry, Julia.
No, carry on. I'm enjoying listening to you.
I absolutely love sports nutrition. You mentioned that I was previously a fund manager in the city. So with sports nutrition, you can see quite clearly that if you've got the right diet in an athlete, the difference that the nutrition is making.
Well, this is the curious thing, and this is why I kind of like to bring in sports element, even if you're not an actual elite athlete, a professional athlete, whether that was your career and you've now moved into a more sort of business orientated field, or you just, I know with a lot of the clients I have who are high performers, they do like to take part in sport at somewhat of a competitive level, and they like to enjoy training, and physical fitness is really important to them. And this is why I like to bring in things. So nutrition is going to play a really big part. So in terms of performance, when you're playing a sport, even though you're not doing it at a professional level, but you're also expected to perform at a high level in your career, say before you retire. So that could be any time between 40 and say 65, give or take. How does that work in terms of crossover? How could you use maybe sports nutrition as an added extra to get you performing better in both, I guess?
I think what we see with sports nutrition is we see the extremes that the body can do. So we learn a lot from sports nutrition and how that impacts performance. I think also the things that we learn about the importance of planning and structure to the diet apply to people across the field if they want to perform to the best of their ability.
And what happens with the body? As you get older, obviously there's lots of changes within the body. We know, if particularly if you're not physically very fit, obviously the declines in muscle quality, and obviously the way that organs function within the body is going to change, hormonal changes. So in terms of that, how can your nutrition, what you're eating in a sense, improve? How would that work?
I think always important, but particularly as we age, we need to focus on three main things. That's bone health, muscle strength and muscle quality, and also the immune system. So certainly bone health, we need to ensure that we're doing weight-bearing exercise and consuming enough calcium to keep the bones strong. As after the age of 40, we don't, the muscles metabolize in a different way. They become less active. So what we know is that the impact of strength exercise and eating protein has less of an effect as we get older. Therefore, more is needed. So it's really important that bone and muscle strength are kept so that it prevents us from being frail when we're older. I think you mentioned muscle quality as well. So muscle quality, there's a lot of research going into at the moment, and the link between muscle quality and our risk of becoming insulin resistant, and potentially then going on to becoming diabetic. So that's making sure that we keep ourselves strong, so the bone health and the muscle strength, as well as muscle quality. But then also the third thing being ensuring the body doesn't get inflamed, so controlling inflammation in the body, because inflammation is the root cause of most chronic diseases and cancers.
Absolutely. I mean, I've been doing a little bit of research myself and going back to that point you made about muscle quality and how important, particularly as we get older, and talking about, you know, the way the muscles help in terms of energy, not just in how glucose uptake, but also the way oxygen is transported and how the body uses that for energy. But also, it's interesting you mentioned about protein, because as you said, there is so much evidence coming out now that actually you need more protein as you get older, not less, and the quality of protein you get as well. I don't know what, I would love to find out your thoughts on, because obviously with there's a sort of big push now to go more vegan diet, and maybe different types of protein. But I always wonder, you know, vegan is a very specific thing. Is maybe going for these, I don't know, more processed, what do you call them? Fake meat, if you like.
Meat replacement products.
Yeah. How does that kind of change with the vegan diet? And again, as you're getting older, because your body is changing so much.
So the number one most important thing is that a person is consuming enough protein. If it's okay, I'll just talk about that for a second, and then
sure, definitely.
I'll move on to protein within a vegan diet. So we know there's a lot of research showing that over the age of 40, protein requirements increase. And certainly as the decades move on, 50s, 60s, 70s, we should be aiming to have about 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight a day to maintain our muscle mass. However, if we want to grow muscle mass, or we're particularly active, so an athlete, that needs to be pushed up to above 1.6 grams per kilogram of body weight. What that is in reality is about 30 grams of protein with each meal. That would be equivalent for meat eaters of a chicken breast with each meal, and then but obviously some variety there, and then protein immediately after training. So then if we look at a vegan diet, there's two things to consider. First of all, the protein quality, which I think you mentioned. So the majority of vegan protein sources do not contain all the essential amino acids that we need to eat to make a complete protein. Therefore, it's really important that vegans mix their sources of proteins. Examples are rice and tofu, beans on toast, oats and seeds. And by mixing those sources of proteins, we'd get amino acid, we'd get a full protein. So that's the number one thing that a vegan needs to consider, that they are getting a variety of different protein sources. Then you moved on, you mentioned the meat alternatives. Now, my concern with these, and what was actually seeing research coming through on the moment, they're actually extremely processed. And we know there's one thing that one of the main things we need to be aiming for in our diet is to focus on whole foods that are not ultra processed. So the challenge is then, while I would be encouraging vegans to choose the more traditional vegan diet that's based on beans and pulses, nuts and seeds, whole grains for their protein intake, that needs to be a lot more planned. And also it is completely possible, but it is more of a challenge to reach those higher protein intakes just using beans and pulses.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because obviously, like you say, you need a certain amount to maintain that quality of muscle. You need a certain amount of protein, and obviously meat, actual meat, whether it's chicken or lamb, is the best source of protein. And getting enough through other sources can be challenging. So obviously it's wise to, obviously, particularly if you're thinking of maybe transitioning into a more vegan diet potentially, and especially when it comes to wanting a higher performance. So for your body to, as you say, withstand the stress, whether that's in fitness and sport, whether it's in a work scenario, you need to be getting those sources that are actually going to help create a buffer for you for the added stress and pressure. Would that be, can you do that through the vegan diet?
You can. So certainly a vegan diet can be complete. Apart from B12, all vegans must substitute with supplement with B12 because that only comes from an animal source. B12 is essential for creating red blood cells in the body that transport oxygen. But there are some benefits of a traditional vegan diet. It tends to be high in antioxidants, which help control inflammation in the body. So there's certainly some benefits, but it is more challenging and does need to be carefully planned. I feel if a person's eating meat or fish with some vegetables and some complex carbohydrates and having variety amongst their meals, they're more likely to tick all the boxes, where a vegan diet needs to, I mentioned the mix of amino acids earlier, but also think a number of the other nutrients, such as some of the other B vitamins and iodine and calcium. Those things need to be more carefully planned. And I feel with a vegan diet, while every meal always counts, more so with the vegan diet because there isn't as much buffer to have a meal that's lower in nutritional quality.
And just moving off that vegan, I think we've covered that. In terms of going back to a sport in a sense, because obviously this is all important for that as well, depending on the sport you're playing, as I say, it doesn't have to be a professional, you can be just enjoying your sport. Does it vary the sort of what you need? I'm trying to think what you need more of sense, depending, say, tennis from golf, or if you like to play a game of cricket every now and then, or squash, whatever. Are the sort of portion sizes, are they going to vary? And the amounts of proteins in terms of fat and compared to fats and carbohydrates, etc., is it going to vary across the board of different sports as well to get the most out of it?
Yes, most definitely. So certainly portion size, energy expenditure would impact portion size. The thing that generally varies most is carbohydrate. So depending on the intensity of exercise will impact how much glucose and glycogen is used to make energy. So therefore, how much carbohydrate needs to be eaten before and during training or exercise to fuel that properly. So if we compare something like an ultra, not ultra, but a mid-distance runner compared to a golfer, the mid-distance runner would require more carbohydrate. So that's really the biggest swing factor of what you would alter the amount of carbohydrate consumed. But yes, also amount of protein. Again, if we look at a strength sport, even something like shot put compared to some other or weightlifting, for example, compared to some other sports, protein requirements do differ, because what we don't want to do is make certain athletes over bulky Whereas depending on sport, you need a different body composition to perform at your best. So yes, it does vary quite considerably between the sport. What I would recommend an athlete is eating.
Yeah. Would that be the same even if they're not a professional athlete, so someone who is older who just loves being competitive? Would that change in terms of that? Or would it be pretty much the same?
No, it would. Again, going back to, we see things in more extreme with athletes, but certainly you mentioned it, someone that's quite competitive, they're going to want to perform their best, so therefore they need to be fueled properly and recover properly, so that they need adequate nutritional recovery for two things. So next time they train again, or next time they compete again, their body's recovered, ready to perform to the best of its ability. And those type of people are also likely to also have a demanding job. They've got to go back into the office and perform well at work as well. So yes, certainly everything we do comes from chemical reactions in the body. And those chemicals and enzymes come from the food that we eat. Therefore, at any level, what we eat will impact how we perform, how we feel, and how we recover.
Absolutely. And it's funny, I was doing some research and we're talking about, you're talking about the chemical changes which actually do occur. And obviously if you're under a high amount of stress, which obviously many people, particularly in this current environment, and they're working as well, they've put themselves through, their bodies through good stress in a sense from exercising, and then they go into a different kind of stress pressured environment in the workspace, and how that amount of stress, the hormone changes that go on, and as you pointed out about the chemical changes as well, and how that can actually affect your immune system, and so heal as well. And sort of going back to this other point that's really important is recovery. Athletes also take time out to recover. Their body needs to repair and heal itself, and it needs to do it as quickly as possible. So in terms of the older athlete or the older high performer, how would nutrition improve or speed up their ability to recover? Because obviously it tends to slow down anyway as we get older, but how can we use nutrition as a support for our body's ability to recover?
I'd say that in that recovery for anyone, but as you say, this becomes increasingly important as we age. There's four main things we need to consider. Training stresses the muscle, it rips the muscles, as you very well know. So we need to ensure that enough protein is eaten afterwards in recovery, immediately after training, to make sure those muscles are mended. That will significantly impact our risk of injury. So those muscles need protein afterwards to be mended, but also a larger amount of protein if actually we want to make those muscles stronger. So that's because the training adaptations come after training and are very connected to what we eat to get those full adaptations. So that protein is really, really important. Sufficient protein immediately after training. We then need carbohydrate. It's very likely, it depends how you feel, but it's very likely that glycogen store, so your store of carbohydrate, has been depleted during that event or that exercise, that training. Therefore, if you're going back to need to perform, need glucose to the brain, including carbohydrate is important. And the amount, again, would need to be personalized, but generally it's about 50 grams of carbohydrate after training. So that's going to give you energy to carry on with your everyday life and start preparing you for when you want to train next. Hydration, really, really important. Now, this is a big area of research at the moment.
Yeah, I was going to talk actually about hydration, because is water enough? Is there something else they need to be adding?
We can, so hydration is really important. We know that in sports performance, but we also know as little as 2% dehydration, which is only not having drunk, for most people, about that enough water. We see a difference in cognitive function, so concentration levels. So again, if we have someone that's trained and then is going back to try and do some work, their concentration, if they're dehydrated, their concentration levels will not not be as good. Water in most parts is sufficient. If one is sweaty, if one is a salty sweater, so loses a lot of salt when they sweat, or they're sweating a lot, it would be recommended that they include an electrolyte supplement in their water. What that does is increases the rate in which the water is taken into the cells and increases the amount that's taken in rather than passing through. So it hydrates. Including electrolyte, if it's needed, will increase the speed at which we rehydrate. So that's three of the principles of recovery: protein for muscles, carbohydrate for energy, fluids for rehydration, and then the third one is antioxidants. We do release stress hormones in the body when we exercise. And also energy is a redox reaction, so creates free radicals in the body. We need antioxidants, which we get from fruit and vegetables, plant-based foods, to neutralize those free radicals and reduce inflammation in the body.
So we've got it there, the four principles: proteins, carbohydrates, did you say? Carbohydrates, hydration, and then it's the antioxidants.
Yes.
That's correct. So those four things. So remember that, guys. Those are the four things you need to be searched for. And also, how do we know if we're a salty sweater? I've never heard that before.
You can tell.
I lick myself.
Yeah, you can. Literally, if you get white marks on your clothes,
right.
If you get white marks around your lips, or exactly by licking yourself, but you can actually be sweat tested. It's actually available. You can be tested for the amount of sodium you lose per litre of sweat. And what we have available now is sodium tablets and electrolytes that you can actually then personalise to your own requirement.
Oh, right. Is that something? Where would you do something if someone was interested in doing that testing their sweat? Where would they do that? A couple
of places. There's a triathlon company that I work with, Try Training Harder. They offer salt sweat testing. There's also Precision Hydration. That's a electrolyte company. Actually, they've now moved beyond hydration to actually fueling as well. They offer sweat testing, and then places like Loughborough University, potentially St Mary's, but a few of the universities offer it as well.
So we can actually put those links in the description below afterwards if anyone is interested in getting something like that. Because I guess if you don't know you're a salty sweater and you're not getting that hydration, that could be actually quite problematic over a long period of time, couldn't it? Especially as we're aging.
Yeah, and it's certainly impacts our sports performance.
Yeah, absolutely. And also moving on now to the next bit, which is actually, as we say, getting this right is never easy. The best thing, as I would say, is always seek advice. Always seek advice, first of all, from a doctor, GP, make sure it's all right for you. But then obviously going to someone like yourself who is a professional and getting it set out for you, particularly if you're serious about your performance and you want to do well in activity. But also you need to then go immediately into being cognitively aware and functional for the rest of the day or later on in the day, and getting that timing right when you eat, because a lot of people, I don't think, eat in the right order and at the right time. And working, you'll know from working in the city, is so many people they're not really eating properly during the day or having a quick sandwich at their desk. And if you're being active, then that's going to really struggle to get the gains that you want to gain in the performance moving forward and do well.
Yeah, certainly the timing of what we eat is very important, and depending when our training session is, whether it's in the morning sessions are always challenging if we exercise in the morning because we've been fasted all night. Making sure we're hydrated and fueled is a challenge. I encourage all athletes to anyone to train fueled rather than training low, but also if a person's been in meetings all day and then they're going straight from work to the gym, again that is going to impact how hard they can work in the gym or in a training session that they're doing. My initial go-to approach is 3 3 meals a day, then potentially a couple of snacks, but certainly a pre-training snack and a recovery snack around training. I know we've talked about this in the past, Julia, but fasting is very popular at the moment. There are benefits of fasting.
I was going to actually say about that. That was the next thing, was because it is very popular. This what do they call it? It is fasting, but
there's intermittent fasting and what's it officially called? Just extended fasting periods.
Yeah, because I mean, I must admit I've tried it once and it did work for me very well. But I think it can be tricky, particularly as you get older, with all the hormone changes and your nutritional needs differ.
Mm-hmm. So it's not, as I say, it's not my first go-to. My first go-to is 3 meals a day: breakfast, lunch, dinner. I'll tell you my reasons for that. Then I'll talk about the benefits that we do know about fasting. I'd certainly say I don't think fasting is suitable for the majority of athletes. They need to be adequately fueled. As soon as they finish one training session, they need to be thinking about fueling for the next training session. But if we talk about work professionals that just like to exercise, I like that 3 meals a day because we get a more balanced diet if those meals are including protein, complex carbohydrate, and some vegetables. We've talked about the importance of protein, importance of the amount of protein we eat, but also we know if we don't eat protein for 3 to 4 hours, we go into muscle breakdown because the amino acids are needed for cell renewal in the body. So we go to the muscle, break down some of the muscle and use it for the cells. So therefore, if we're doing an extended 18-hour fast, that actually limits the amount and frequency of protein we can consume. So that's why I like people eating regularly through the day, so that they're consuming enough protein frequently enough. And that goes back to my very first comment on the importance of keeping muscle strength as we age. The other thing is bones. Again, with that extended fasted period, what people tend to drop is their breakfast. And breakfast for most people is where they get their calcium from. Potentially they have milk or yogurt with their breakfast. So where's that calcium going to be in the diet if breakfast is being dropped? So so that's why. And also someone in the office that's in regular meetings, again, needs that glucose going to the brain. So that's why I like that approach. Let's talk about fasting because it is very popular at the moment. So the benefits of fasting are thought to be twofold: for weight loss, but beyond weight loss, beyond what we would expect from weight loss, there does appear to be some health benefits in the body of reversing chronic diseases and reversing inflammation in the body. So yes, for weight loss, I can see why fasting is beneficial, because even if we just say that people have to stop eating by, a person is following a fasting diet, that they have to stop eating by 6, 7 in the evening, it actually cuts out all the calories that they would normally eat after that. And from my experience with clients, is actually a lot of the chocolate, crisps, wine, eating and drinking goes on in front of the telly later on.
Absolutely. I'm guilty.
That's been cut out. So therefore there's we've cut out the things that are less beneficial to our health anyway, and we've reduced the calories. So one would expect someone to therefore lose weight. But as I say, beyond that research is seeing that there is a more beneficial effect. And then also that longer fasted period, it means that we run out of glycogen, so the body is targeting fat more for energy creation. So therefore there's a bigger fat loss, and it's that fat loss that is thought to be why there's a bigger impact on our well-being than just weight loss alone, and how we metabolize. However, the big thing here to consider is, first of all, we don't have any long-term research on this. Fasting we have that short-term research on what's happening in the body, but not following someone that's spent 20 decades following that extended fasting period. And my concerns are, as a person ages, they might become more frail than if they'd followed the traditional 3 meals a day. And a lot of the research we actually have on fasting is actually in animals, it's not in humans. So I think, yeah. So the jury's still out. I definitely see a purpose for some people, and it is the right thing for people to either intermittently fast or do an extended fast period. It's not my first go-to. And that goes back to the importance of personalized nutrition and actually finding what is the right eating approach for the individual to support their well-being and their performance.
Yeah, it's definitely not a one size fits all for sure. And it's actually interesting because fasting in the sense, if it's something you have to do, or I don't know, your doctor suggested you do, then it is only meant for a short space of time. It's not supposed to be an indefinite thing. In terms of, like you say, and especially if you're a very active person, and we're talking about protein earlier, then if you're not getting enough of that because you're limiting how many meals a day, so that's limiting your the amount of, in terms of grams of protein or whatever you're getting a day, that's going to limit that, and that in itself is going to affect muscle atrophy and muscle loss. Would I be correct in that?
Yes.
And you need that muscle mass. Muscle mass gives you muscle quality, and muscle quality, as we know, is really important as we age, and more so the research is there.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. A lot of research, understandably, looks at one narrow thing, and we actually need to look at the whole well-being, and we don't have so much research on that. Yes, we know that fasting is good for X, Y, Z, but also, exactly you said, we know regular eating is important for muscle quality, which is good supports long-term well-being. So, yes.
So actually, as we move on again, let's look at, because obviously we're talking about planning and structure. So what would be your top tip, say, for getting the right advice if you're serious about it? But then if you're somebody who just wants to sort of get an idea, use the information we've discussed today and start getting a routine, getting planning, what would be your top tips to be the most efficient way to start planning your nutrition for your day?
So that word planning, that is the most important thing, that most people don't plan to eat an unhealthy diet. So planning really is the core foundation of a healthy diet. So thinking ahead, and either that you have a weekly food plan if you eat at home, so that you can shop in advance, or you actually just put in for busy people. I think what is really effective is if they create a plan what they're going to eat for their dinners, breakfast and lunch as well, potentially depending where they eat. They can have the same thing for a month, so the same every Monday, same every Tuesday, for example. We need diet diversity, but that weekly set plan, and then they can just put a supermarket order in for that food to arrive each week, because that makes it much easier. If the food is in the fridge, so you come home from work, the food is there, you're not having to make a decision. I also think that's important for people. I know a lot of your clients and listeners will actually eat out a lot in restaurants, but it's that mindset of not every meal is a celebration meal, and if you're eating out for business, it needs to be part of your healthy, balanced diet. So if there's restaurants that you go to regularly, look at the menu, look at what will create a balanced diet. If you need that complex carbohydrate, the protein and vegetables, restaurants often don't include vegetables, need to add that side of vegetables on. So planning is really, really important. As I say, my go-to would be 3 good meals a day, balanced meals a day that contain enough protein, enough vegetables, plus your training nutrition, carbohydrates before training, potentially during, and then nutritional, a recovery snack afterwards. So that's 3 meals: pre-training snack, recovery snack.
That's really great advice. Actually, we were going to talk about eating out, because that is a problem, especially if they're in business, because as we know, they're always going out for dinners and obviously drinking too much. Usually, I've been to a few of those events myself. But that's really great advice. So basically, just to wrap up before we finish this edition, is So the top tips really from today is making sure you're getting enough protein, especially if you're very active, you're very physical, as well as high pressure job. You've got to get your proteins. You need to have your proteins, especially between sort of training and work as well. Is that correct?
Yes.
Making sure you're well hydrated. Get a check for salty sweat. The keto has its place, but ideally your main thing is getting your 3 meals a day, so you're getting that balance of nutrition, that balance of proteins, fats and carbohydrates to give you the energy, not just physically but also cognitively as well, so you stay alert and focused and you get everything done. Have I missed anything else?
No, I think you've summarized that quite well, Julia.
Well, thank you, Helen. But I know this is the first of our 3-part series, and I know each month, next month, and then in August, we're going to have the 3rd part. And I think next month, we're talking about inflammation, if I am correct. And
such an important issue.
Such an important issue with everyone under stress as well. And it's just not inflammation from physical trauma. It's the inflammation that comes with high stressed environment, and then both physically and mentally and emotionally stresses, and how that can combat, how nutrition can help you. Before we go, I would like to ask everyone, if you've enjoyed today, please like and comment and subscribe, because that really helps. And then the more subscribers, the more viewers we have, I can bring even more fantastic guests like Helen, who has come today. But for now, I would like to thank you for joining me, Helen. It's been really insightful. I look forward to seeing you next month when we're talking about inflammation. But for now, I'd like to thank everyone, and we'll see you next time on Unleash Your Inner Athlete. Thank you.